The night the world of professional wrestling thought it had seen everything, every high flyer, every powerhouse, every technical wizard, was the night it was truly humbled. It wasn't a 300-pound behemoth or a masked luchador who did it. It was a ghost, a whisper from Hollywood's deadliest legacy, and when Steven Seagal's daughter stepped through the ropes, she didn't just fight a match, she performed an autopsy. Number 1. The Empress and the Enigma. The air in the Apex Wrestling Federation, AWF arena, was electric, a thick cocktail of anticipation and stale popcorn. Over 20,000 souls were screaming for the main event of AWF, Reckoning, the company's biggest show of the year. The prize, the AWF Women's World Championship. In one corner stood the champion, Seraphina, the Serpent Dubois. She was less a wrestler and more a force of nature, a 6-foot monument of chiseled muscle and contempt. For 487 brutal days, she had reigned as the Empress of Agony, a tyrant who didn't just defeat her opponents but humiliated and injured them, collecting championships and shattered careers with equal glee. Tonight was supposed to be another easy coronation. Her opponent was a mystery, a surprise debut hyped for weeks by AWF's bombastic owner, Maximus Thorne. A paradigm shift, he'd promised, a competitor who will redefine this entire industry. The fans, however, were jaded. Such promises usually resulted in a returning veteran past their prime or a charismaless rookie. Seraphina herself was bored. She paced the ring, microphone in hand, her voice dripping with venom. "Bring out your surprise, Thorne," she roared. "Send this poor soul to the ring so I can break her in half and go home." The arena lights died. A profound, almost unnerving silence fell over the crowd. Then music started to play. It was nothing like the thunderous rock or pulsating hip-hop that usually accompanied wrestlers. It was the haunting, lonely melody of a Japanese shakuhachi flute, underscored by a subtle, menacing electronic heartbeat. It was the sound of a storm gathering miles away. On the giant Titantron, a name materialized in letters of fire, Arissa LeBrock. A confused murmur rippled through the arena. LeBrock. The name was vaguely familiar from fashion magazines. But what was a supermodel doing here? Then, a subtitle faded in beneath her name. The Daughter of the Dragon. A brief, iconic image of her father, Steven Seagal in his classic Aikido stance, flashed on the screen. The murmur exploded into a wave of shock and disbelief. Steven Seagal, the master of Aikido, the stoic, bone-breaking action star, his daughter? Here, from a cloud of smoke at the entrance ramp, a figure emerged. Arissa LeBrock. She wore no sequins, no flashy gear. She was dressed in a simple black martial arts gi under a worn leather jacket. Her face was bare of makeup, sculpted with an unnerving seriousness. Her long, dark hair was tied back, revealing eyes that held none of the vacancy of a model, but all of the focus of a trained killer. She moved not with the swagger of a wrestler, but with the deliberate, almost silent grace of a predator. The crowd was a mix of stunned silence and derisive laughter. "Is she lost?" someone shouted. "Seagal must have cut her allowance." In the ring, Seraphina laughed out loud, a harsh, grating sound. "This is your game-changer, Thorne? An Instagram princess? Honey, this isn't a catwalk. This is a slaughterhouse." Arissa slid under the bottom rope, stood, and removed her jacket. The body underneath was not the soft, toned physique of a model. It was lean, hard, and traced with the faint, silvery lines of old scars and the subtle bruising of intense training. This was the body of a fighter. Without a single glance at the champion, she closed her eyes, took a deep, centering breath, and settled into a fundamental Aikido stance. The bell rang, and the world of wrestling was about to be turned inside out. Number 2. The Art of Deconstruction. The first 2 minutes were a massacre. Just as everyone predicted, Seraphina, fueled by arrogance and raw power, descended upon Arissa like a hurricane. A vicious clothesline sent Arissa crashing to the canvas. The crowd winced. Seraphina dragged her up by her hair, slammed her into the turnbuckle, and unleashed a torrent of brutal chops and kicks. "This is it, folks! A lamb to the slaughter!" screamed the lead commentator. "Arissa LeBrock does not belong in the same ring as the Empress." But Arissa wasn't screaming. With every blow she absorbed, her expression wasn't one of pain, but of intense concentration. She was reading Seraphina, studying her patterns, her breathing, the rhythm of her assault. Seraphina hoisted Arissa onto her shoulders, setting her up for the Serpent's bite, a devastating powerbomb that had ended dozens of matches. As Seraphina lifted her high, something impossible happened. Mid-air, Arissa shifted her entire body weight, twisting not against the move, but with it. She used Seraphina's own upward momentum to flow around her neck, turning the powerbomb into a spinning, fluid takedown known in Aikido as iriminage, the entering throw. Thud. Seraphina slammed onto her back, the force of her own move knocking the wind out of her. The entire arena fell silent. What was that? It wasn't a reversal. It was physics. It was magic. Enraged, Seraphina scrambled to her feet. "Fluke!" she screamed, charging blindly at Arissa. This is where the performance began. Arissa didn't meet force with force. She redirected it. When Seraphina threw a wild punch, Arissa sidestepped, catching the wrist and applying a small, sharp, devastating turn. A scream of agony tore from Seraphina's throat as a fire she had never known shot through her joint. It was kotegeishi, the wrist turn, applied with surgical precision. Every attack from the champion was met with the same ghostly evasion and painful redirection. A kick was caught and twisted into an ankle lock. A headlock was escaped and transitioned into a chokehold. The crowd, once mocking, was now watching in hypnotized awe. This wasn't the wrestling they knew. There were no high-flying theatrics or body slams. This was a methodical, terrifying deconstruction. Arissa wasn't trying to overpower Seraphina. She was taking her apart piece by piece. The commentator's voice was now laced with disbelief. I don't understand what I'm seeing. Arissa LeBrock isn't wrestling. She's dismantling Seraphina. She's targeting every joint, every tendon. This is horrifying. This is beautiful. Number 3. The dragon's final breath. Fear was now creeping into Seraphina's eyes. Pain and humiliation were foreign concepts to her. Desperate, she did what all cornered champions do. She cheated. When the referee's back was turned, she gouged Arissa's eyes. As Arissa recoiled in pain, Seraphina delivered a savage low blow, then threw her from the ring, her body colliding sickeningly with the steel steps. The monster in Seraphina was now fully unleashed. She slammed Arissa's head into the announce table, splitting her forehead open. Blood began to stream down Arissa's face, matting her dark hair. The crowd's sentiment had completely shifted. They were now roaring for Arissa. They saw an underdog, an artist being brutalized by a thug, and they screamed her name. "Arissa! Arissa! Arissa!" Seraphina dragged Arissa's limp body back into the ring, a sadistic grin on her face. "Let's see your Aikido stop this," she snarled, setting Arissa up for her ultimate finisher, the Empress's Edict, a twisting, high-impact pile driver. But as Seraphina prepared to drive her head into the mat, the look in Arissa's eyes changed. The pain was gone, replaced by a cold, hard finality. It was the same look her father had in his movies moments before dismantling a room full of enemies. As Seraphina began the downward plunge, Arissa didn't resist. She used the last of her strength to shift her hips and wrap her legs around Seraphina's neck. The pile driver was neutralized. In one fluid, impossible motion, she transitioned from the brink of defeat to a position of absolute control, cinching in a sleeper hold from behind. But this was no ordinary sleeper. It was a carotid restraint, a blood choke taught to her by her father, designed to cut off blood flow to the brain instantly. She called it the Kokuryu no Saigo, the Black Dragon's final breath. Seraphina began to panic, her limbs flailing wildly. Her face turned from red to purple. She clawed at Arissa's arms, but the grip was like steel. Arissa's face was a mask of pure, emotionless focus. The crowd watched in breathless silence. They weren't waiting for a tap-out, they were witnessing an execution. Seraphina's struggles weakened. Her eyes rolled back in her head. The referee rushed in, checking her arm. He lifted it once. It dropped. He lifted it a second time. It dropped. The third time, her arm fell to the canvas like a dead weight. She was out cold. Ding! 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 The bell rang frantically. Arissa released the hold, and Seraphina's unconscious body crumpled to the mat. Arissa LeBrock had won by technical knockout. She hadn't pinned the champion. She had choked her into oblivion. Number 4. A new chapter, written in blood. For a few heartbeats, the arena was utterly silent. Then, it erupted in a roar that threatened to tear the roof off. Fans were on their feet, their minds blown. They had not just seen a new champion crowned, they had seen the birth of a new philosophy. An artist who had defeated a brawler with intelligence, leverage, and a terrifying, beautiful violence. Arissa stood in the center of the ring, exhausted, her face a crimson canvas. The referee handed her the AWF Women's World Championship. She didn't hoist it in the air in triumph. She draped it over her shoulder, feeling its cold weight against her skin. There was no joy in her eyes, only a profound sense of accomplishment. A mission completed. She took the microphone, her breathing heavy. "They ask why I am here," she said, her voice raspy. "They say I'm a model, a celebrity's daughter. I am here because combat is in my blood. But my combat is not about strength. It is about art." She glanced down at the unconscious form of Seraphina. "This ring isn't just a stage for brutality. It is also a chessboard. And tonight, Aikido was checkmate." She dropped the mic and walked out of the ring, her exit as quiet and deliberate as her entrance, leaving behind a new legend written in blood and silence. That night, the internet exploded. Aikido Ghost, the daughter of the dragon, the new empress. Wrestling purists cried foul, calling it a mockery of the sport. But a new audience, one that had always dismissed wrestling as fake, was suddenly intensely interested. Backstage, Maximus Thorne smiled. His gamble had paid off beyond his wildest dreams. And in the locker room, the other wrestlers watched Arissa on the monitor with a mixture of fear and awe. She was not one of them. She was something else entirely, an enigma, a ghost in their machine. And somewhere far away, in a darkened room, Steven Seagal watched a replay of his daughter's victory and allowed himself a small, knowing smile. The legacy was safe. The art was alive. And the story had only just begun.